how did your favorite NFL team perform on day 2 of the 2023 NFL Draft? What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here with my breakdown, my draft grades for every NFL team on day 2, rounds 2 and 3 of the 2023 NFL Draft. I'm going to go team by team and break down their draft on day 2 and give you my honest thoughts and honest opinions on each prospect and each team, if they met their needs, if they got good value on their picks and solid players for their teams in 2023 and beyond. Let's kick it off with the AFC. We're going to go division by division so that you guys get a sense of how your competition did as well. So let's begin with the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills did pretty well. I gave them a B+ on day 2. I really like that they addressed 2 of their primary needs, one being offensive line, the other being linebacker. They found a replacement for Tremaine Edmonds, a long, athletic linebacker who apparently the fans actually voted that they would pick in this draft. So they know their team very well, but this is exactly the prototype. Exactly the prototype. This is why the fans knew this. They know that Williams was going to be the prototype for what they were looking for. A longer athlete, a tackle machine, somebody that may be able to step in right away and make plays for the Bills at linebacker next to Matt Milano. You also have Osiris Torrance, who's arguably the best guard, pure guard in this class. And what I really like about this pick is the physicality and the toughness and the grit that he brings to this offense, because that's what you're missing. I love that in combination with a guy like Damian Harris, who you signed in free agency. Then we have the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins had 2 picks today. They did not have a first-round pick for reasons that we do not have to discuss. But the Miami Dolphins selected Cam Smith, a cornerback who has a lot of potential. A lot of people really like this guy. I had him flirting with my top 5 corners in this draft. Some people thought he could go on day 1 in the first round. A lot of nice things to like. Pretty good length and size to him, but also in combination, what impressed me was the feet. The ability to stop, start, match receivers. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he fits on this depth chart. Does he play in the nickel? I think he has the reaction skills to be able to do so, but I would think he's more of a prototype for the outside, potentially for Howard or Ramsey down the road to replace them, but I'm intrigued to see where he fits right away. And then you have Devin Achane, the running back, who a lot of people love. Personally, I wasn't the biggest fan. All I really saw from him was speed, but I will say this, if you're going to take a speed back, one of the most ideal situations to go to is the Miami Dolphins. Raheem Mostert is on this team, right? A lot of people mocked Devin Achane, or a good spot for him to be the Miami Dolphins because he plays like a Raheem Mostert. He's an Olympic sprinter type of guy. You look at his 100-meter dash of like a 10 flat. It was ridiculous. It's real all-world speed, track speed. So he doesn't have great agility. He's not super powerful, but in this zone scheme, if he can just hit one cut and he hits that lane, he can be gone just like Raheem Mostert. So it's a great fit. I gave the Miami Dolphins a B for their overall draft, and depending on how you feel about the running back, you may even give them a better grade for day number 2. Next up, we have the New England Patriots. My New England Patriots, who I gave a B- for day number 2. I think it's solid. I think a lot of fans are upset for clear and obvious reasons. They've picked 3 defensive players when they already had, coming into this weekend, one of the best defenses in football. That being said, I like what they did here in terms of the positions that they addressed and also some of the prospects they added. Like, Keon White is a really solid player. Some people even had him as a top 30 prospect. Again, another guy for me that was flirting with that like 7th, 8th best edge rusher in this class. He is somebody for Patriots fans. Look at a Dietrich Wise, but more importantly, look at a Trey Flowers. He's very similar to me to a Trey Flowers type player. Plays with more power than a Dietrich Wise does. Very good, raw prospect with a ton of just power in his hands to be able to get to the quarterback, but can play maybe like inside on pass downs, set the edge on run downs or early downs, depending on the personnel packages. And this is somebody that New England needed because Josh Uche, the coaching staff doesn't love him as a run defender. So I believe he could play snaps early on. Then you also have Marte Mopu, who I'm still working on the name here, but he's an inside linebacker and from a smaller school. So I don't know much. I'm just going off what I've heard, and I'm going off what I've been able to learn over the past few hours. But very promising hybrid athlete that played safety / linebacker in college. He was more of a safety in college, but he projects to be more of a linebacker in the NFL, to be that box just playmaker. And I'm not sure how they're going to utilize him, and this is why I give them a B-, because I'm not sure when he projects to get on the field for New England. They already have a Jabril Peppers, a Kyle Duggar, a Adrian Phillips, all guys that are good in the box naturally, along with the linebackers they already possess like Jawan Bentley. So I'm intrigued to see how they use him, but this seemed like a Bill Belichick pick, and Daniel Jeremiah, this was actually his favorite player in the draft, so I have to be excited about that at least. So this could have a lot more upside, but just based on, you didn't get a receiver or a playmaker, I gave it a B- for the day. Then we have the New York Jets. They just picked one player, partly because of Aaron Rodgers' deal, I believe. Joe Tipman was the selection at center. I gave it a C+. Like, yeah, he's a solid center and all that, but I don't think he's playing in year one when you need players to play in year one if you're the Jets, because Aaron Rodgers, you don't know if he's going to be around in year two, year three. So he might be a center for the long term. He's also a good depth player for the interior right away. So I don't hate it. I don't love it. I also felt like there are better centers on the board for the Jets. The team after that is the Baltimore Ravens, and they went with Trenton Simpson, who for some people was a top 5, top 3 linebacker in this class. Very athletic, very fluid movement, kind of projects as more of a coverage linebacker in the NFL. I like a lot that he brings. I think he might be a little soft against the run personally for my taste, but I do think he's got those movement skills that is coveted in the NFL, especially in this day and age, to play the pass game. I just don't know where he fits. Like, he's at least at best the third best linebacker on this team with Queen and then, of course, Roquan Smith. So he's not going to be playing right away other than in a depth role. So I don't love this pick, given that they only had one pick today. So I gave it a B-. I understand there's value there for some people. Personally, I wasn't as big of a fan as other people, and I also felt there were bigger needs like corner that they could have addressed in this position. Next, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals, I thought, had a phenomenal day two after a day one where they got Myles Murphy, solid player, but I wasn't in love with it. I gave them an A for the day because they finally addressed the secondary. They, of course, got DJ Turner, who is one of my 4 favorite corners in this class. I had him as my 4th favorite corner in the class because he runs a 4-2-8. He plays sticky man coverage, and yes, he's a bit undersized, but I think the biggest thing that you love about him is his versatility. I think he can play inside or outside. And then on top of that, he plays bigger than his size with more physicality than you would expect from that frame. And his ability to be twitchy and break on the football is absolutely special. Kind of reminds me of Marcus Jones from the Patriots last year and the things that I liked about him. So he comes in at my 4th corner and a great pick for them. I think he could start right away. And then Jordan Battle's another guy that can play right away. He played a ton of snaps at Alabama, box safety type of player that projects to replace Von Bell, a hybrid in that fashion. I think it makes a lot of sense to project him as maybe a long-term starter for them. So to get 2 starters on a really good team for Cincinnati potentially, at the very least, a starter and then like a high-end backup, that's really good drafting in my opinion for Cincinnati. Then we have the Cleveland Browns, who did have 2 selections today after not having a first-round pick yesterday. I didn't love the Cedric Tillman selection. I would have liked Cedric Tillman to a different team, potentially. I was kind of hot and cold with Cedric Tillman. I see some things that a lot of people like the physicality, the natural X position type of role that he may take up on a depth chart, that big body, natural catcher, all that stuff, ability to stop and run routes. that's all good and stuff, but like, he's going to be the fourth receiver on this team, a team that wants to win right now. Elijah Moore, they traded for him. Mari Cooper's there. Donovan Peoples-Jones is a guy I like, so maybe he's a down-the-road receiver and contributor that you like, but I just felt like the first pick in their draft this year doesn't contribute right away. That's disappointing. Then after that, they go with the big D tackle, a guy that's mostly a run defender with some upside. I don't know, like, I like that pick in terms of a need. They need big interior defensive linemen that can stop the run, so I understand it, but again, I felt like the Tillman pick, maybe I would have liked more on a different team. I just felt like for the Browns, a bit disappointing given their depth chart currently at that position. After that, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I gave, by the way, the Browns a C, okay? The Steelers are up next. Maybe you give them a C+, but I give the Steelers an A-. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I felt like had a very solid day 2. I may be a little overrated by some people because so many people are just into the Joey Porter Jr. thing, and I get it, like, it's cool, but the guy's got to be good, okay? And I think a lot of people projected him as a first-round talent, but a lot of people that say that, I honestly don't think they watched him all that much because he certainly has more flaws than people talk about. Like, I question his ability laterally to be able to match and play man coverage against NFL receivers, quick guys, those smaller, twitchy receivers. But what I love about the pick is the fit in Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh identified a corner that fits well in their scheme. Press coverage at the line, a linear athlete who's big, physical, all that stuff. Perfect environment for him. And also a lot of like cover 2 press at the line, or you're playing man like he did at Penn State. But you just got to find the right matchups. I feel like Pittsburgh is a great fit, one of the best fits for Joey Porter Jr., which is why I like the pick there. Darnell Washington was a big name pick for them, and I wasn't as high on Darnell Washington as many other people. Like, I understand he's a freak show, ran ridiculously fast for a 6'7", 260-pound athlete. Like, the guy is a unreal blocker, and that's what I expect him to be in the NFL. I didn't see enough twitchy fluidness in his athleticism as a receiver to ever have upside there. But he's going to be a really quality, usable number 2 tight end because of how good of a blocker he is. And any upside you get as a receiver is a nice little cherry on top. Then they also take Benton, the D tackle. I think this is a nice pick because you've got 3 guys that are going to contribute on day 1, year 1, in a different manner. Benton could start day 1 as the nose tackle and take up a ton of space and help out Cameron Hayward and those boys up front. And I also believe they were getting older at that position, so I like that they did go and select this need at the interior defensive line, and he seems to fit the Steelers prototype. So I do really like what they did today. I gave them an A-. Some concern over a couple of their picks, but not enough for me to lower it from an A type of grade. After that, we have the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans, to me, had a B. They had a couple picks that are like enticing to me. And the all-name team, obviously today, they pick a guy named Tank and they pick a guy named Juice. Tank Dell was one of my favorite receivers to watch in this class. Little shifty slot receiver who just finds a way to be productive. To me, and by many people, I know Greg Jennings was a huge fan of his game. Ridiculous release package, really creative route runner, very good separator. He's just very small. But I do wonder if he can be impactful in the NFL, right? They drafted John Mechie last year. I think this is a very similar pick where you're trying to find that slot receiver in this offense or a receiver contributor. And this is, of course, Nick Caserio, a guy that values those type of quick little twitchy wide receivers. So I like that pick a lot. And then you pick Juice Scruggs, a center. They did need a center. So maybe not my favorite center on the board at the time, but I do realize that they needed a center. And he might even start from day 1. So you get at least one potential starter and then a guy that maybe has an upside that is a lot greater than where he was picked, but obviously a lot of risk given the physical profile of Nathaniel Dell. After that, we have the Indianapolis Colts. who selected a wide receiver and a corner, so two positions that I value very highly. I really liked, personally, the cornerback pick of Julius Brents. He's big, tall, long, perfect fit for the Colts defense. Gus Bradley scheme, cover 3, cover 1 style of defense. I thought he was one of the more underrated prospects at this position. I think he moves smoother and more fluid than a guy typically of his size. I think he might be the steal that the Colts picked here in the second round, I believe. And then they get Josh Downs, a wide receiver that a lot of people had as their 5th or 6th best receiver in this class. I even heard people say the 3rd or 2nd best. That's a little wild to me. I think he's a little limited as he is a slot receiver. But for the Colts, they needed a short, shifty, middle of the field, underneath receiver. And that's what Josh Downs is to me. Like, really good ability at separating through his route running, catching the football, and then also playing above the rim for a guy that's kind of a smaller in stature, but really good stop-start in his routes, really consistent producer at North Carolina, their best receiver for multiple years, and I think he'll be a good player in the NFL. I don't think he's going to be great. I don't think he's going to be a number 1, but as a guy that can play in the slot, I think he's going to contribute right away and replace Paris Campbell there. So I like that pick. Then we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I gave the Colts, by the way, I gave a B+, and if I missed the Texans, I'm not sure if I did, I gave a B. I apologize if I'm missing some of these grades. I'm so focused on some of the prospects. The Jacksonville Jaguars, I gave a C-, okay? A C-. I hated their draft today. I felt like it was the worst draft out of anybody. First of all, Brenton Strange, a huge project at tight end. He's basically a wide receiver playing tight end, a lot like Evan Ingram, and personally, I don't see how he's going to play anytime soon. If they keep Evan Ingram around as they should, I don't think Brenton Strange is making anything happen here on this depth chart. I don't know how you can play 2 move tight ends and Christian Kirk in your offense consistently. So I felt like that was a waste of a pick unless you lose Evan Ingram next year. And then Tank Bigsby, I just didn't like, period. I watched him. I thought he was too slow. You know, I don't think he has it. In my opinion, I like quick, shifty, elusive running backs who can play on all 3 downs. I didn't see anything electric in his game, anything explosive in his game. I just didn't feel he was a round 2, round 3 type of running back personally. So I gave them a C-, man. I know that's harsh, but that's just my truth, okay? And then we have the Tennessee Titans, who I gave a B. I gave the Tennessee Titans a B for their draft tonight. Will Levis, of course, they got at quarterback, which was the big name, the big move that everybody was intrigued. Where's Will Levis going to go? And ultimately, he lands with the Titans. A lot of people thought the Titans would trade up and get C.J. Stroud. A lot of people thought they might even pick Will Levis in the first round. Well, they get him in the second round. Now, personally, not the biggest Will Levis guy. I actually had him as my 5th quarterback. He went above Hooker, so to me, it's not even really a value, despite everyone saying it was. I will say this, man. I hope Will Levis does well. He does suit the mentality and the approach and the toughness of Mike Vrabel. I really see some similarities there in terms of Ryan Tannehill and their game, kind of deceptive athletes, the ability to run and extend plays, good, strong arms down the field, tough quarterbacks. I see some similarities between Levis and Tannehill, definitely. So as a guy that could be the starter long term, there's some things there. On top of that, I like them, again, the mentality. I think he fits the Tennessee Titans, what they've been and what they are. And then I feel bad for him, man. I felt like a lot of people were asking him about the mayo stuff and the banana stuff, and you could just tell like the guy was fed up and he was regretting all that. And I felt bad for him. I hope he does well. And I hope he shows a lot of people that he can be a good player, including myself, because I don't really see it personally. I know there's traits there, but I don't know. We'll see. It's worth the risk, though. I will say that. Tyjae Spears is the guy I really like that they picked today. I heard that he may or may not have an ACL, as OBJ didn't, apparently. I don't know how you tear an ACL and also don't have one, but that's a side note and another story to itself. But Tyjae Spears is my 3rd best running back in this class, in my opinion, only behind the 2 first rounders. Really, really good on all 3 downs. Really deceptively good route runner, in my opinion, and can play as a 3rd down back. Really good contact balance. Breakaway runner. Very, very good vision. I think he's an excellent backup for Derrick Henry short term and potentially a starter in the NFL long term. Had some like Matt Forte to him, in my opinion. The Denver Broncos are up next. I gave the Denver Broncos a B+. Marvin Mims was their big selection today. They traded up to get him in the 2nd round. Very intrigued. I'm not like one of those big Marvin Mims guys that seemingly everyone else is. I didn't study him as hard as some other people did, I would say. So I'm kind of still like on the outside looking in with that one, but I like the aggressiveness to go get a receiver. I felt like receiver was a very underrated need for the Denver Broncos, especially to get Russell Wilson going in this offense and on this team for this franchise as the franchise quarterback that they invested so much money in. Jerry Jeudy will be back and hopefully still on the team, and they won't trade him tomorrow. But Courtland Sutton very well could be traded tomorrow. I wouldn't rule that out. And then you got Tim Patrick and you got KJ Hamler. And I felt like Marvin Mims is a guy that's a little bit smaller, but can make plays down the field. That's something that maybe the Broncos are missing a little bit. Drew Sanders, I think, is, again, another guy that I think more people like more than me. Drew Sanders is a little bit limited, in my opinion, a little bit one-dimensional. Yes, excellent pass rusher from the linebacker department, but that's really all he is. He's not a great run defender, or he's very limited in coverage. So you kind of got to hide him in that regard, and that really hurts your defense. If you have to hide a guy and make him a blitzer all the time, unless he becomes Dante Hightower, where he can play on the edge or at linebacker and blitz up the middle consistently and get pressure, and he's a good run defender, and he can play a bit of man coverage like Dante Hightower, then maybe he's a great pick here. But I don't know. I just didn't see it. I felt like, again, there was better linebackers on the board, and he was a bit one-dimensional. And then Riley Moss, I got to give them huge props for picking a white cornerback. I'm just going to be honest, represent, man, Riley Moss. I hope he does well. Fast, actually really good athlete. And Denver definitely needed a corner, so I definitely see the need there. And they did hit most of their needs here. Linebacker was a need, corner was a need, wide receiver not as much, but still, like I said, they could have utilized. I gave them a B+ for today. I know it sounded like I was down on it, but overall, I like what they did. I didn't love it maybe as much as other people. So B+ for the Broncos, B for the Titans. Continuing on, we got the Kansas City Chiefs, who I also gave a B, okay? Rashee Rice, who I really liked on tape. I had him in my top 10 receivers. Now, maybe not as high as the Chiefs picked him in the 2nd round, I believe. That was a little rich for my blood, but I saw the upside. Physically looked bigger than his frame and his size. I think he's listed at about 6'1", can run, can separate down the field, make plays in contested situations. He adds a bulky frame and a big receiver frame to a receiving core that is mostly smaller guys or skinny guys. So I like this pick. I think there's upside there with Rashee Rice more than other receivers in this class. And then they went with Morris at tackle, who you can always use tackles. The Chiefs did need a tackle after losing Orlando Brown in free agency. I don't think he's going to be a starter, but he could potentially compete for the right tackle position or potentially be a long-term solution down the road at right tackle. But I see him more as a swing tackle to begin with, so I gave them a B. Then we have the Los Angeles Chargers, who I gave a A-. I liked what they did today. There's upside with the D lineman pick. Don't ask me to pronounce his name, honestly. But there's a lot of upside there. 20-year-old prospect, one of the youngest guys in the draft, had a really, really promising final year. And just trait-wise and overall athleticism-wise and projection-wise, there's a lot to like about that selection. I also felt like the Chargers did need low-key an edge player. Khalil Mack's getting older. They could use a third guy in that rotation. And this guy can play interior or edge. He has a little bit of flexibility to him. So I like that he has versatility. I like the age. I like the upside with that pick. And then on top of that, you've got arguably the best linebacker in this class, Henley, who's a great character. Chargers fans are going to love him. And for Connor McLeod out there, he's going to replace Drew Tranquil for him. Great character. If you haven't listened to his press conferences, they're absolutely hilarious. But this guy is arguably the best run defending linebacker in the class. So that's what I like about him. He's just no nonsense, gets downhill, shoots gaps, makes hits, makes tackles, defends the run like an animal with reckless abandon. You got to love that at the linebacker position. So Henley is going to fix a lot what they've been dealing with the run defense over the last couple of years. And then we have the Las Vegas Raiders, who I gave a B. At the beginning of the night, I thought getting Michael Mayer, I was going to end up giving them an A, but Michael Mayer is an absolute stud in the second round. I felt like he's a franchise tight end. Like, maybe not a super athlete. He's not Kittle. He's not Gronk. He's not Kelsey in that regard, even though he is called Baby Gronk. But I think he's going to be a top 10 tight end in the NFL. He's a good, willing blocker, tough, physical. He moves people in the run game. On top of that, which is going to be valuable for McDaniels, he needs that type of guy. On top of that, he just understands how to get open for zone coverage. Very good in contested situations, despite his length of his arms, right? And I think kind of deceptively quick in some ways. Not fast, but quick. So, and super productive at Notre Dame. So you got to love that pick for the Raiders. That's just a classic McDaniels at tight end. Then they go with Byron Young out of Alabama, who played a ton of football. He can be kind of like a strong side end. He can play interior defensive line, bring some versatility, bring some experience in college football and big games and playing a lot of football there. So I think he's a quality depth player, that Trey Flowers, Dietrich Wise-esque player for Patrick Graham's defense. And then Trey Tucker, I thought was the worst pick of the night for the Raiders. I actually listened to Ziegler's press conference. He really likes this guy, seemingly, and his background, but he's a great kick returner, very good contributor for special teams, speed receiver who can get vertical down the field, great quickness. That is something they didn't have, but he's the fourth receiver at best, right? You've got Renfro, you've got Myers, you've got Adams. So fourth receiver at best, special teams contributor, returner. I understand it. I would have preferred maybe fourth round instead of third. That's being a bit nitpicky, but I give the Raiders a B, B+ in that range. After that, we go into the NFC. We got the Dallas Cowboys. My favorite pick of the night was the linebacker from Texas, Overshown from the Hook'em Longhorns. I just really like how he plays. Of course, I keep bringing it up, but I went to that Alabama game against Texas, and I was super impressed with the Texas' speed of their defense. And whenever you're talking about the speed of a defense, it all starts with the middle linebacker, and that's exactly who this guy is. And super athletic, super just tough, physical, downhill, no nonsense, just reckless abandon. Like, every tackle he makes on the tape is just a showcase. Like, the guy wrestles you to the ground and slams you to the ground and gives you a DDT like Jake the Snake Roberts. So that's fun to watch. And Luke Schoonmaker of Michigan, the Wolverines. A lot like Dalton Schultz. Good run blocker, really good run blocker. And kind of deceptively athletic, good route runner overall. Maybe not the most upside at tight end in this class, but I think he's going to be able to start and play as the inline tight end for the Cowboys right away. And then we have the New York Giants, who I think a lot of people will love their day two and their overall draft. I love Deonte Banks from round one, and I loved their second round pick, the center, John Michael Schmitz, who was probably the best center in the entire draft and is going to be able to step right in and start for the Giants and upgrade that position. Whenever you can get a starter in the second round, a guy that you know could be the best player at his position in the entire draft, that is an A for me at that point. And then they drafted Jalen Hyatt, who I'm not a big fan of. I'm just going to be honest. I think he's a little bit weak physically. He's super fast. He's a straight line receiver. They could use that. I'm not going to lie. If he does break out and become special, then he's got the traits to be a number one receiver. It's certainly there, but there's a lot to project, okay? Now, Brian Daboll might be able to use him as a special weapon, so I wouldn't rule that out. He might be able to use him as a mismatch type of player, right? Even if it's kind of not all the time, but just in a few formations and a few concepts as a number 4 early on, and then maybe he can develop down the road. But I felt like they already kind of have like their 3 set. They didn't really get a big time guy in the first round. Sure, some people will think he's a number 1 right away. I view him as a depth role player early. So I gave the Giants overall for the day an A-. After that, we've got the Philadelphia Eagles. I gave the Eagles a B+ for the day. Tyler Steen is an interesting prospect. Started a lot in his college career, ended up transferring, I believe, to Alabama, and then played pretty well at Alabama. I think he projects more as a guard, though. So it's interesting. You know, I did bring up Peter Skoronski could have been the pick in the first round yesterday, and I do believe Tyler Steen is like a lesser version here. I think he could be a future guard for this team, as one of their guards right now is going to have to move to center when Jason Kelce retires. So Tyler Steen might be a future guard. He might be able to play tackle, but he's definitely a project, but there's a lot to work with there, and already a lot of experience from college football. Sidney Brown is the pick I really like. I really like Sidney Brown. I think he's a super rocked up athlete. A lot to like there. Strength. He brings some pop in his punch when he's tackling people. I think he brings a little bit of like Malcolm Jenkins-esque type of player, very athletic, flies around the field, some like Patrick Chung-esque type of, look to him. A little bit stocky, but like, yeah, big hitter, good athlete. His brother's in this draft as well. Really like this pick. B+ for the Eagles. And to wrap up the NFC East, the Washington Commanders love Jatavius Martin, who was Sidney Brown's teammate, I believe. Jatavius Martin, just really, really awesome range. I think he probably had the best pure free safety tape in the draft. Free safety nickel, like he played kind of both, where they would ask him to play man coverage from the nickel spot, but also be a rangy free safety all over the field. I think Washington might have got the best guy at that position in this entire draft, so I have to give them props for that. Now, I will say that I'm not really sure how that depth chart's going to work out with Forrest and Curl and Martin there, but I certainly think that's a guy that could start from day one. He's got special range, special speed, and playmaking ability, and also kind of nickel ability as well. And then they pick a center later on, who wasn't my favorite pick at the moment, given the position of, there's other guys that I liked a little bit more, but I will say they do need a center long term, so I felt like the need made a lot of sense. I thought the Commanders did well today. I gave them a B+. After the Commanders, we're going to the Chicago Bears in the NFC North. The Chicago Bears, I gave a C+. I didn't like their draft today that much. I liked where they went with the picks, but not necessarily the picks themselves. Tariq Stevenson from the U. Always love to see the U get some players drafted, but I do question Stevenson's athleticism. I don't know if he's going to be able to play in this mostly zone coverage scheme of the Bears. I don't really see the projectable traits that maybe the Bears see in this scheme. I like the press coverage aspect. I like the height, but I don't know. He didn't look great to me in zone coverage on tape. He looked better in man, but even then, like his physical traits are maybe a little less than I would like for a man coverage corner. And then Dexter and Pickens are both defensive linemen. They needed defensive linemen. I don't think neither are game changers, but both could be contributors. And given the state of the defensive line, I think you got to give them a thumbs up for at least attempting to improve that position. So I like that. I'm going to give them a C+ because at least they hit some of their bigger needs. The Detroit Lions are next. The Lions, I think a lot of people are going to say, are one of the biggest winners today. I was a little bit up and down with their draft today, but I mostly like it. I gave it a B+. Sam Laporta was my third-ranked tight end in this class. I like his receiving ability. I thought he has really good receiving ability, pretty good twitchiness in his routes, really reliable hands, not much of a blocker, but I think right away he'll be the most talented receiving tight end on this depth chart. So good pick to start the second round. Didn't think that he was better than Michael Mayer, but it is what it is. Brian Branch, safety, love this pick. I thought he was probably like the best nickel slash safety in this class. Really smart player, really good ability to stop, start, click and close, you would call it in the NFL world, and just really smart player. Like, I can't speak highly enough about his intelligence to see the game from multiple positions, to be able to read and react, to make plays against the run, the pass, all that. So he's going to be a contributor no matter where he plays. I know Lions fans are going to say, see, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's there. Like, where is he going to play? But Brian Branch is just a really good football player. He's going to play safety. He's going to play nickel at some point in time, and he's going to be good. Hendon Hooker, I like Hendon Hooker. I actually had somebody reach out to me on Twitter about the pick for Detroit. I like Hendon Hooker. I had him as my 4th best quarterback in this class, ahead of Will Levis, as I've already mentioned in this video. Really like Hooker's arm strength. That's something that popped to me, the ability to make down the field throws, tight window throws, really good rhythm throws due to his arm strength, over the middle of the field, slants, digs, deep posts, deep go routes, all that stuff. Very good, very accurate in my opinion. One of the 3 most accurate quarterbacks in this class. First round accuracy, first round arm strength, good size, NFL size, right? And then you've got plus mobility, the ability to do a designed run at the end of the day. He had a number of long rushes in his college career. I think a lot more upside than people believe in that department. Now, the questions really for him, the reason he wasn't a first rounder or an early second rounder was the age and the injury. And that's really it to me. Like, I understand the Tennessee offense, but when you just look at his ability to throw the football and his traits and his intelligence, he is a smart guy. I think all of that is there to at least be a second round pick. Right? There's been guys like Jimmy Garoppolo who came from like an offense that didn't even call plays really. Like, they didn't even have a playbook, okay? And he was a second round pick. So like, people are maybe exaggerating that whole offense thing a little bit there with Hendon Hooker. And then they added a D tackle, which wasn't my favorite pick. I feel like they've made this pick like the last year. They loaded up a D tackle, I believe, and we'll see about those picks. I don't know, that you're just filling up a depth chart with guys that are kind of the same, big kind of run stuffers to me. Nobody with a lot of upside, in my opinion, at that D tackle position. So I like 3 out of the 4 picks. I really like Branch. I feel like there's upside with Hooker. Doesn't contribute right away, but great value in the 3rd round. And then also just the potential to be a starter is awesome. So I gave the Lions an A- for their day 2. After the Detroit Lions, the Green Bay Packers. The Packers, I gave a B. It was kind of an interesting day 2 for them. 2 tight ends and a wide receiver. Jaden Reed, a little bit smaller, right? More that Randall Cobb size as opposed to a Jordy Nelson size, right? Not Christian Watson size, not Romeo Doubs type of height, right? This is more of that 5'11 type of frame, a little bit skinnier than you would typically see. But good, interesting, crafty route runner that actually does get down the field. Good speed. Packers seem to like that speed on receivers. Maybe he's a future slot for them. That is something that I believe they needed, is a guy that can maybe work that short intermediate level of the field. I think he's a pretty good intermediate player. Wasn't my favorite receiver at the point that they picked him, but I can overall see what they liked about him. Luke Musgrave, shout out to the Laxer man and the skier. The guy has a ton of upside as an athlete, really wicked athlete. I think in terms of the tight end position, he might be the best athlete in the class. And that does kind of scream like, well, they did this similar thing with Christian Watson where the guy was just such a sick athlete. They took a chance on him. Now, not saying it's going to turn out, but there's a chance here that the Packers know something. Now, not a lot of production from his career, especially lately. A lot of injuries. I think that's due to the fact that he is a bit like slimmer as a tight end. I worry about his ability to take contact over the middle of the field, but he is wicked fast. And he's got all the tools from an agile perspective, from a height perspective, to be somebody that can really run routes at a high level. So I really see the upside with him. Tucker Kraft is another guy that's maybe a little bit more floor guy at the tight end position, but he can do everything really well. Like, nothing is really a standout quality for him, but he can block. He's willing in that department. He's good after the catch. That's the one thing that I really liked about him. Tucker Kraft overall is just a solid tight end that I think is going to contribute and probably play earlier than Musgrave will, just because Musgrave's more of a project, in my opinion. After the Packers, we got the Minnesota Vikings. I gave the Packers a B. The Minnesota Vikings get a C. They only picked one player, Mekhi Blackman. A lot of people didn't have him going this high. He was more of like a 5th, 6th round projection. I understand that the Vikings love USC, but this felt like a little rich for my blood. On top of that, corner was a position of need, so I can't hate on that. But I don't know. I'm intrigued. He plays with physicality, maybe holds a little bit too much, a little bit too grabby and physical and all that stuff. Maybe Brian Flores can fix that up and really get the best out of this player. We'll see, but only one pick on the day. I gave it a C. Moving to the NFC South, the Atlanta Falcons. Matthew Bergeron is a sick football player. I really like him. I think he's going to be a good guard. I think he was one of the best guards in the draft. You know, him and Peter Skoronski are guys that played tackle, I think project to guard. Mock as well was another one. Bergeron, I think, is a really good run blocker. Has some nastiness, some toughness to him. I think fits the Falcons perfectly to a T. I think he fits very well. I think he's going to be a good player, and it completes the offensive line, in my opinion. Could be one of the best offensive lines this year in the NFL to open up for Bijan Robinson. Does make sense with what they're building there for the future. They've signed their offensive line long-term. Bergeron is that missing piece. Zach Harrison is an edge player that some people like more than me. I'm a little bit kind of like, I don't mind him, but I do like the need pick. They certainly needed to pick an edge. Some people thought they might do it with like a Nolan Smith in the first round. They end up going with Zach Harrison a little bit later out of Ohio State. And again, like, adds a layer to that depth chart, adds another potential guy for the Falcons at a position of need. So I gave them a B+. I felt like maybe they could go corner or edge sooner, like for that second round. I didn't think like guard was their biggest need overall, but Bergeron is such a good fit and that Harrison is a good need pick that I just liked it too much to give it anything less than that. So I liked what the Falcons did today. After that, the Carolina Panthers, who I didn't love what they did today. I understand what they did today, but I wasn't a huge fan of the players. So depending on who you talk to, they'll like this draft a little bit more than me. But Jonathan Mingo, I feel like, is more of a 4th round receiver. He's in the 2nd round because he's big and he's fast, and that's really it. I didn't see him separate or run routes very well at the college level. You know, everyone sees the Ole Miss jersey and assumes it's A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf, and he can run and he's big, but other than that, man, I just didn't see it from him. He's got the tools to work with as a number 1 receiver. I just don't think he'll get there in the NFL. DJ Johnson, solid edge pick, definitely a position of need. There's some tools to work with as a pass rusher there. And this was definitely a position of need. Like, other than Brian Burns, he doesn't really have that second edge rusher to go to. So maybe DJ Johnson becomes that. Probably not right away, but maybe in the future. So I didn't mind that pick. I gave them a C+. I just felt like it was an average day 2 for the Carolina Panthers. The New Orleans Saints. I gave the Saints a B. Keandre Miller was one of my favorite running backs to watch in the class. Does everything well. Good pass blocker, good receiver, really good contact balance, not breakaway speed, but actually has a very similar build and frame to Alvin Kamara. A little bit puzzling that they did go running back after signing Jamal Williams to a pretty substantial contract. Even if Alvin Kamara has some legal troubles, Jamal Williams is already still there. So Keandre Miller in like the 3rd round, whatever it was, that's still a high priority pick to spend on a running back, even though I like him. Isaiah Foskey out of Notre Dame. Interesting pass rusher. I don't think he has natural bend, but typically what you see with the Saints is they like these bigger, powerful, good hands guys. They like the guys that use their hands well, the guys that are powerful, the guys that win with speed to power. I think he is in the mold of what they typically do like out of this position, and I think he fits that. I'm not going to say he was one of my top guys in this class, but he certainly was deserving of where they picked him out of Notre Dame, one of the most productive players Notre Dame's ever seen at the position. So I gave them a B for the draft today. Then we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They picked 2 players that I do like. I like Cody Mock a ton, though. So I gave them a B plus because I felt like this was a position of need and a player I really like. And also it's just hilarious that they've got two gingers on the offensive line who are tough as nails and literally eat nails and lose their teeth. This guy's got no teeth, so you've got to love him. He's a beauty. But Cody Mock is going to be playing probably guard in the NFL, but he did play tackle, I believe, in college. Just super strong, road grader type offensive lineman. Just what the Bucs love, right? They love these guys. Alex Kappa, Ryan Jensen. They traded for Shaq Mason last year. They let him walk. He's going to be a guard, start from day one, and be an absolute force. And then Diaby is the edge player they picked with some pass rushing upside and pedigree. I agree that they did need an edge player. After picking Kalijah Cansey, I was unsure they would pick one this soon, but they're really trying to reinforce this front seven, which is what they did when they got there, right? This is what Jason Light did when he got there. This is what the Bruce Arians, Todd Bowles regime did. They picked up JPP. They picked up Shaq Barrett, right? They drafted Devin White. So they're replenishing that talent in the front seven, and I understand it. I get it. I get what they're doing. I gave the Bucs a B+. Now, the Arizona Cardinals in the NFC West, A-. I actually really like this one and really like this draft, and it actually went kind of under the radar, I think, for a lot of people. BJ Ojulari, just like his brother, I think he's going to be a solid pro. Do I think he's going to be special? Maybe not, but I think he has more upside than his brother. And the Cardinals really needed a pass rusher. I thought they could take Tyree Wilson or Will Anderson in the first round. They end up getting a good one that a lot of people had as like a fringe first rounder here in the early second. So I really like it. I think he's going to contribute right away and produce right away out of LSU. Garrett Williams is a corner that I saw a lot when watching Charlie Jones and a couple other receivers kind of through cross evaluation. Stood out to me with, pretty good man press ability. Kind of like in the longer, taller outside match zone corner, maybe more. So I think there's upside with him, but there is also risk with the injuries. I think he's probably more of a number 2 in the NFL, maybe a number 3 corner in the NFL. He's not going to solve everything there, but I think he could start right away if he's healthy. And then Michael Wilson, I really like Michael Wilson. I almost made him a top 5 receiver on my rankings. I think he's got great releases, not great speed, but man, the guy knows how to run routes. Really good route runner, and he's got great size. The combination of his quickness laterally and his size is very, very rare. So I really like that pick. I gave the Cardinals an A- for their draft tonight. The Los Angeles Rams, a B+. Really like what the Rams did. I felt like this was super underrated. First, they get arguably the best zone blocking guard in the entire draft with Avila. So I think that's an awesome pick. That's what they do. That's what McVay wants. And they got an automatic starter from day one at guard. Perfect. Love it. Nothing to complain about there. And then Kobe Turner, I think, has some upside. This is somebody that PFF loved. I believe he was like the second best Power 5 rated defensive lineman in the entire draft. So PFF loved him. Really good sign, analytically speaking. And then Byron Young has a lot of upside. So I love what they did here, addressing the front seven on defense and offense. All guys can contribute right away given the state of their roster. I think Byron Young does have a lot of upside as a pass rusher to maybe even be their best edge rusher right away as soon as he gets on the roster. So I really like what they did. I think it's a B+, A- type of draft for the Rams on day 2. And then wrapping it up with the 2 final teams, the San Francisco 49ers had a very puzzling day 2. Big fan of Shanahan and Lynch and what they've done, and I ranked them number 1 as the best drafting team in the NFL. This is a team, though, that's in an interesting spot and a dilemma, so to speak, because they're so good. They don't need a lot of players to really contribute at key positions, so they're trying to find contributors in this draft, and that's why they maybe go outside the box. But I really like the Brown pick at safety. He does remind me of Jaquan Brisker, who came out last year from Penn State. This guy also from Penn State. He's going to play that Tashawn Gibson role in the future once Gibson retires and hangs it up. He's a box safety who has great instincts for the position, just has a nose for the football, and makes plays. A lot like Brisker. Maybe not the fastest guy, but great in the box, like Tashawn Gibson. They pick a kicker. Okay, I get it. But the kicker isn't maybe not the most squeaky clean prospect at kicker that we've ever seen. So I question picking him in the third. You maybe could have had him in the fourth. But whatever, it is what it is. I'm not going to hate too much on the pick. If he's good, he's good. If he's bad, he's bad. It's a huge need for the Niners. Robbie Gould, obviously retired. And then Cameron Lotu is just a backup tight end. So that's why I wasn't like in love, because they picked a kicker and a backup tight end, really. Lotu's a good blocker, though, and has got some promise after the catch once he gets his ball in the hands there. But yeah, a backup tight end. He's going to help the running game a little bit out of Alabama. Has obviously played in some big games and has some good off-the-field character. And then the final team is the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks, I gave a C+ for tonight. Zach Charbonnet was the bad pick for me. I'm not a big Charbonnet guy. I had him lower end on my top 10 running backs. I just don't love the explosiveness. I don't love the home run capabilities. I like that he has a balanced skill set, but I don't think he does anything special. I don't think he's super quick. I don't think he's actually super powerful despite his big size. He's good at everything, right? Pass blocks, catches the ball, good, decent power, decent speed, like decent everything, but nothing special. I think he's a backup in the NFL, and you picked him probably too high for my liking. Derek Hall, I really like this pick. I think he has a lot of upside given what the Seahawks like to do. Wide 9, right? Pass rush. And he's got really good hands. I think he's got pretty interesting bend to work with there, and he could be one of your better pass rushers. You didn't get one in round 1. You passed them up. So to get Derek Hall here in round 2 is very promising. So I gave the Seahawks a C+. Don't hate it, but I just felt like the Charbonnet pick was a waste because Kenneth Walker's such a stud. I don't think you need to pick one that high, but those are my draft grades for day number 2, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was a little bit longer, but I wanted to give you my absolute purest thoughts and in-depth. So thanks if you enjoyed. Gronk, spike the like button and subscribe. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching. Peace.